So thank you so much, Dan and Aki and everyone there from More Space for Light inviting me to this talk today. Let's see. My name is Cecilia Tom. I'm actually not Spanish. If you can't tell that I'm not Spanish, I am all over the map. I'm from Hong Kong, grew up in Hong Kong, studied in the US, landed in Barcelona, and have been here for almost 20 years. And I am the founder and co-founder. We have actually two more founders of Futurity Studio. We're a future-focused research and design venture studio. I just realized it is a mouthful. I probably have to reduce this. We do a lot of different things, and I'm going to tell you guys a little bit of what we do. But we have a very clear vision, which is to help others and to teach other people as well to build better futures faster. So that is our goal, that is our mission. We work with different organizations, naming here a few, work with Program, NASA, and also private companies to help them envision these futures. So I wanted to kind of walk you through a little bit, the future study isn't really a new domain space, but it has been transforming over the years. And it started with, looking at the future and just, predicting the futures and trends and whatnot. And that kind of transitioned into, once you can predict it, people started making different alternative futures so that they can start planning for those different scenarios. And once those techniques have been mastered, they started creating tools so that we can shape those futures. And what's really exciting for me is that we are now at this place in time where we can actively build the futures that we want. And this is what we wanted to aim towards, is how can we all participate and co-create these futures together. So, so I call myself a futures synthesis, and it's not really a term that is used. You might probably have heard of like futurists or futurologists and even forecasters, but there's a reason for us naming, using the word synthesis. And so you look at the word analysis, right? Analysis is, when you break things apart and so that you can understand the different parts as individual. And we do analysis too in what we do. But what's also really interesting for us is to the other component of it, which is to synthesize. And to synthesize is you put these different parts back together to form a whole. And we kind of, dwell on this word synthesize, because when you decouple something and you put them back together, you can put in new ways that you have never seen before. And that gives you new ideas and new concepts and new possible ways of working. And so we really wanted to hone in on this idea of taking things apart and putting back together in new ways and forms. And so, like I mentioned before, synthesizing future and what we do now really isn't about, recreating something new. We have been building on massive body of work and insights from other people, and this is a kind of a schematic understanding of this ecosystem, from business strategy, so forecast strategists and analysts and futurists to, the more technical research aspect of it, the scientists and the engineers, and then to the more kind of a cultural and design and art aspect, creative aspect of this, and that includes speculative designers and futurists. And we really ride on these giants in order to do our work. And so, thankful to a lot of their insights, we built our body of work as a synthesis. And so that's what future synthesis is, and this is what we do. And a lot of times in our office, once you have that methodology, that is like the engine, right? But you still need the content, and you still need to feed the ingredients in this engine. And so at our work at Futurity Studio, we have built a kind of a three-pronged system where we take this methodology, which we call synthesizing future, and we have these tools, and which is these card games that they're like inputs that feeds into this methods, and which produce different exploration for us. So right now we have 4 verticals of exploration: the future of food, the future of commerce, the future of gender inequality, and the future of neural interface. And I'll give you a little bit of examples of some of these exercises or the explorations in these labs that we have done. And so that's a little bit the way we approach this. And so every lab, every vertical, so for example, in the future of food or future of commerce, we start this new lab in this cycle. We do a lot of research, understanding the space and the area. With this research, we create insight and we create what we're calling future artifacts. And then output the actions that we wanted to come out of from those explorations. And that is one of our cycles. So I want to show you some of the output that we have done. And this is one of my favorite projects. And it looked into the future of food, and we call this Polygenomic Plantable meals. And basically, in this particular project, we were looking at the future of food and the potential of how we can use tomatoes as a bioreactor to culture meat. So basically using the scaffolding structure of tomato to culture meat cells inside. And we call plantable meals. And the concept is that can we actually plant the whole entire meal? Meaning like you have the garlic, you have the onions, you have the meat, and then you have the tomato, like the salsa bolognese that we all know of, but like in one plant. Is that a possible future that we want, where we can, save on packaging and everything is, is in one singular plant that can be grown at your house, right? So obviously this is a speculative piece, but it's based on evidence that we can already grow. We can already scientists have already been able to culture meat cells into plants, like in spinach leaves and grapes. It's a process called decellularization. Sorry, excuse me. Another project that I actually love all of these projects. I don't have a favorite projects, but this is another one. It's called electronic edibles. And so you can pass electricity on your tongue to induce taste. So on the diagram on your right, you can see on the tip of your tongue, you can induce sweetness, on the side is salt, and the back is bitterness. And so depending on the intensity and the placement, you can induce these tastes. So we created this electronic tongue sleeve that you put on your tongue so that you can taste different senses without actual eating food itself. So the thinking behind this is that could we create a whole line of electronic food where we separate the pleasure of eating from the kind of the nutrition and the materialization of eating, so that we're not wasting food or even wasting calories when we're eating. Another project is the vapor hole, and this is on the same line of electronic food, where we wanted to replicate the experience of scents, and also vapor hole as in vaping alcohol. And so here, we were playing with how the senses of smell could be captured by vapor. You can smell it, so you can literally vape a gin and tonic without getting super drunk, but have all of the pleasure of drinking the gin. And also we were testing on some visualizations where we can project an image. So now you have the sense of taste, you have the sense of smell, you also have the visual of the food, and really kind of recreating the experience of eating without actually having any food substance there. So that's vapor hole. There's the Fluid Farm. This project came about, I love plants. I love plants. And we were doing this exploration of the future of plants and plant rights. And so we thought, well, what if we give plants autonomy? So imagine an autonomous vehicle plus a plant, and that the plant can make decisions on its own and say, I want sunlight right now, and so it goes to the sun. I want water right now, I go to the water. I want to take a selfie with someone and charge $1 and keep that money. So make whatever decisions that the plant can have, or even imagine that you can plant tomatoes here, and then the plant could decide whether to sell that tomato and keep that money on its own. So really trying to understand the potential of what happens if the plants in the future have such an autonomy and rights and power. Sometimes we do things that involve other people. So we really wanted to get people's opinion on, this hybrid invention that we have invention in the future. So in our labs, although we don't have a wet lab to make these tomatoes, we surgically recreated the experience. We really wanted to kind of get people feedback on what happens if we do have a tomato in the market. Would you buy it? How much would you buy it? And would you eat it? And it was a really interesting exercise, because some people actually find it repulsive that they see a plant with meat inside grown together. And so this is the kind of feedback that we want when we do prototyping and really getting the experience replicated and the insights that we need to continue with these projects. So I want to spend a little bit of time to kind of walk you through, from research to artifact to action cycle. And this is probably one of our more mature projects that we've been working on over the last 2 years. We started this at Alpha Telefonica. And this was our exploration on the future of commerce. And I'm going to explain a little bit what that means. So a lot of what we do is we kind of understand the evolution of how things change over time. So if we look at commerce, if we really want to understand, where commerce comes from and how it has been evolving, commerce was commerce. You go to the shop, traditional commerce, you go to the shop, you exchange money for goods, you bring home the goods, and that's, that's the transaction that we had. But then we all know that e-commerce came about. All of a sudden, it shifted the way we transact and make exchange. All of a sudden, you no longer have to wait for the store to open. You can buy things whenever we want through the interface of a laptop, right? And different businesses sprung out from that e-commerce boom, where you have Amazon, you have PayPal, you have these companies that wouldn't have existed before. That's nothing new. And that then evolved into mobile commerce, where all of a sudden you have transaction capabilities on your hands, and it really pushed forward companies like Uber that could make transactions on the fly, in real time, in the locations that they need. And without mobile phones, you won't be able to have companies like Uber succeeding, because they really need the kind of in real time, location-based type of transaction. And that shifted also, that opened up a whole different type of companies and paradigm in terms of transaction. So our job is to really look at, well, okay, this had happened, these different steps of evolution had happened. What's going to happen in the future? And we call this A-commerce, which stands for autonomous commerce. So what exactly is autonomous commerce, right? So autonomous commerce basically is very much based on this future that is based on machine economy. And machine economy is when intelligent, autonomous, networked machines have the ability to exchange with each other. And capable of making these transactions. And for the second time, and I will explain why it's the second time, not the first time. It's the second time in our history that an autonomous market participant that is not human can make these transactions and have transaction power with limited or no human interventions. So the first time this had happened was companies. So companies as an entity have the ability to make these transactions, and our market participants and are non-human. So we have precedent, and this will we can look into how companies adapted to this type of transition, and likewise, same thing would happen as we migrate into the machine economy. So let me give you an example of what that looks like, right? So imagine I have a self-driving car, and you have a self-driving car, and my self-driving car, we're both in the highway, and I'm in a hurry. I can say to you, my self-driving car as a machine can negotiate with your self-driving car and say, hey, I'll pay you $20 and you move over. And so that would be a transaction among machineries, not knowing as a human, not knowing what's going on, but I will give my machine a certain level of autonomy. So that would be an example. Another example of this is in food, where, for example, if I have a smart wallet and I walk into a smart supermarket, and they might negotiate, if I pick up an apple and the apple will expire, they might negotiate amongst themselves and say, hey, I'm going to give you 50% off this apple if you buy it now. So there are many other case studies that people are already looking at how this could be applicable in insurance. And you can already see, you know, in the future where you have autonomous vehicles getting into car accidents, they could already settle the claim there and then and there at the moment of the accident, because all of this will be transacted among machines. So all of these things will be disrupted again. This is nothing new. We have seen the disruption in e-commerce. We've seen the disruption in m-commerce, and the a-commerce, the payment, buyers, sellers, all of these things will be again disrupted. The question is, how will it be disrupted, and how can we prepare ourselves for that kind of disruption? So we have looked at how's it going to impact your household, for example, right? If you have all of these drones and all of these delivery bots bringing food to your house, your appliances might have to really be redesigned. So maybe in the future, instead of having you have access to the refrigerator from the inside, maybe there's also access to the refrigerator from the outside, where all of these machineries can interact directly and transact with your appliances, from refrigerators to ovens to your closet to your trash. All of these things that have input output will need to have some ability to communicate and to transact with the outside, these outside bots. So, not only will you see the shift in terms of how these paradigms will be adopted, I'm going to give you also an example of how business models will also be shifted, right? So I'm going to use an example of music here. So in the old days, in the traditional commerce, you have people going into the store and buying things, right? And you buy the whole entire album, the whole entire disc with 12 songs. But that migrated to e-commerce, and in iTunes, all of a sudden you can buy one song, 99 cents. I still remember that, and you all you have to do is just buy that one song, and you have access to that one song. And then that shifted to a subscription base, and all of a sudden you pay for a subscription, and you have access to all of the music, endless music forever that you can even listen to. So the question is, well, in the autonomous commerce era, what business model will shift? And so we're looking at, in this future, when technology is migrated into AI-generated content, what business model will have to shift in order to accommodate for that level, that different technology, right? And so while music is an example, music was really easily transferred into a digital good. But what about things that have, bits and atoms like food, right? How is that going to shift? And so, we still go to market. I love going to food markets, but we're starting to see the transition into the e-commerce, where, one of the reasons why Amazon bought Whole Foods in the US is because they really wanted to be in this space and kind of look into how this transaction of this evolution of commerce will exist, right? And so what's going to happen next can we imagine there's such a thing as the Spotify for food, and what does that look like, and how would that evolve? And what would generated food looks like? And so here a little bit our exploration is the electronic tongue, the kind of replicating the experience of food without food itself, how that might become part of the evolution of this exploration. So there the outcome of this is that we've looked into how our kitchen might transform. I'm not going to go into details of this, but I wanted to give an idea of some of the things that we're looking at, and how our kitchen might shift. The infrastructure of our household might have to also transformed. Our appliances will have to transformed, and how our infrastructure below ground might also need to be adapted for these new technologies that are up and coming. Yeah. So I want to jump into synthesizing futures quickly, because I'm already running out of time, but it's okay. Okay, so synthesizing future is our kind of way of methodologies of
not running out of time.
No, we're good. Okay. I still have a lot of slides.
You're the boss. You do. There's like heaps of conversation going on here. People want Spotify for wine. I just mentioned that maybe we could do some sort of faxing of Domino's pizzas. So,
awesome. Okay, I can't see the chat. So, okay, great. So synthesizing future is really our way to kind of, understand and create a methodology to explore all of these different areas. So what is synthesizing futures? And I see that some of the students that are taking the class, they are here and they have even probably done the first step or the second step. So I'm so sorry, it might be boring to you, but I'm going to repeat a little bit. So it's actually really simple. And there are 4 things that we want to create. And the 4 things are, we're creating a map, we're creating a story, we're creating an object, and we're creating a plan. And I'm going to dive deeper into these 4 different things. And so when we're talking about future, and we're talking about anything, actually, an exploration of anything, the first thing that we wanted to do is create a kind of understanding of what that space look like, that landscape, right? And so and here we use different techniques. There's and I have to say that the synthesizing, I'm going to go back into this, recognizing that a lot of what we're doing now, we learn from, experts, and we learn from renowned futurists, and we borrow their tools and kind of made a few of our own tools so that we can, really learn from what they have done. So the futures wheel is one of the exercises that I absolutely love. I will share the white paper later with those that are interested. But there's this is a technique that came about probably in the 90s. And so we're borrowing this, but in a very future-driven scenario of mapping what the consequences of things will be in the future. And I'm going to walk you through, because this is precisely the activity that we will be doing towards the end of the talk. The second thing that we want to do is build a story. And so here I'm going to give 2 examples. This is a particular story that we have written, and so we created a fictitious character that is a bot, and the bot is actually writing about his coworker, what a pain in the ass we are. And it is from a very, very different perspective of understanding the future of work and what it means to exist, human bot, coexistence in the workplace. That particular story actually came about this, we had this technique when we were at Alpha that I took this magazine, which is we took a real-time magazine. This was in 2019. And that particular magazine looked at the social problems of migration. And we took out all the words from migrants and we replaced the word with machines. And so instead of, why the forces of global migration can't be stopped about migrants, we looked at how, if possible, there might be social issues with bots, and how can we understand those social issues. So by simply replacing that word and exploring all potential, stories behind that kind of line of thinking, we looked at potential social problems that might arise in the future just by writing these stories. The third thing that we will do in the synthesizing future will be creating the object, which we call future artifacts. And so here, I'm bringing Herbie back because he's my favorite pet now, and he has a name, and he lives here in the office. And and we're going to be giving Herbie, some autonomy soon, learning how to build autonomous toy cars so that he can navigate on his own and maybe follow me a little bit. So we built these artifacts as a way to kind of understand and give us insights and feedback on the limitations, both from a user standpoint, but also from the functionality standpoint. And then a plan to work backwards to see if this is a particular future in 20 years, well, what do we need to do now? What do we need to do, a year from now, 10 years from now, for that particular future to happen? So that's synthesizing future in a nutshell. There are, I stopped counting how many steps there are. I think there are about 16 steps altogether. But the idea is to have an end-to-end goal and end up with a materials that you can work with and try to, envision and strategize what that future that you're trying to explore looks like. So Let me see. So why are we doing this? So I'm really invested in trying to democratize and to increase the proficiency in global future literacy, because I find that we're lacking the vocabulary, we're lacking the tools, we don't really teach this in school. And there are some universities starting to have kind of emergent futures programs, but it's still not a mainstream thing. And I think that this is definitely a skill set that everyone should have. But I also want to take this and push it one step further and saying that this is not just about building the vocabulary to be able to talk about it, but this is about upskilling ourselves to be able to make and proactively create the futures that we want. So it's this kind of like first learn how to speak about it and then learn the tools to make those futures, and how can we do this together as a community. The second thing is that futures is for everyone. So it's not just my future, it's not your future, but it's a future exploration for everyone. And we're looking into how can we build a library of open source body of explorations that everyone else have explored and that we can be inspired by. So imagine if we were to build a Google for futures, and what would that look like, and how can we learn from each other?